Wow. Oh my gosh. Good evening, everyone. Can somebody just let me know that you can hear me? What a drama. Here we are. God, all still here. Thank you ever so much. God, that was really, really stressful. I didn't want to be I didn't want to see a program all about stress management getting really stressful, but that's what happened. Will somebody just say something in the chat to say that you can hear me, please? Just so we can start that way. I don't trust anything at the moment. That would be really nice. Okay. What? Yep, we can be heard. That's brilliant. Thank you, my friends. Thank you ever so much for waiting. You know, when technology decides to just leave you in the lurch at the very last minute, just as you were about to start something you've been worried about all day, and it becomes a huge stress. If there's ever a time I needed to go to the time between times, it's now. So here I am. Diolch o galon, my friends, for joining me here. I apologize for the delay once more. My name is Owen, and I'm a storyteller. Thank you for joining me here at the time between times. The time it's neither night nor day, but the sun has gone, and the sky is grey. For those of you who enjoy the videos, you'll have noticed that I put a stress management video up this week. So please take a look at that. It's all about how we deal with stress and how we can use little coping methods just to get us in the right frame of mood for relaxing. And that's what I'm here to do tonight. Just take a little bit of time to tell a story in a mindful way. So, my friends, if you can, and it's safe to do so, please just sit back and relax and let the tide of traditional tales wash over you. Tonight is called Curios and Creatures, and I am going to talk all about the mythical beings of Wales. But first, let us take that winding walk down through the paths to the forest. Step upon the leaves upon the forest floor. Hear them crunch under our feet as we make our way down the twisting, turning path to the fire pit. We look up. We can see the sun in the sky. We can see the moon in the sky. But we know it's the time between times, the time when it's neither night nor day, but the sun has gone and the sky is grey. The time when the veil between our world and the fairy world grows wafer thin. So thin that for a few moments I can reach into their realm. Or for a few moments they can reach into mine. Now is the time that people see lights in the sky. Now is the time that people see the Tylwyth Teg. And now is the time of stories. So make yourself comfortable on the old log by the fire pit. The crackling of the fire can be heard. The shaking of the light seems to shake the whole of reality as we look around and smell the smoke. No matter what is going on in our world, we know we are safe here at the time between times. So take a breath. Come with me far away to Llyn Conwy in North Wales. A glistening, gleaming, streaming lake. It's like looking in a mirror when you look at Llyn Conwy. It's surrounded by trees that stretch to the sky and great hills that run for miles. Many, many years ago, in a time beyond time, the lake was a far different place. For the lake was home to a creature called the Afanc. Now, the Afanc was a great mythical beast from Wales that lived in Llyn Conwy. It had the head of a crocodile and the tail of a beaver. It was huge, gigantic, and would swallow cows. It would swallow sheep and was even known to swallow humans. Once the people near Llyn had tried to catch the avanc with great nets, but it had leapt out of the lake and landed with such a splash that 3 farms surrounding the lake were totally drowned. The people didn't know what to do. Whenever someone went down to the lake to fetch water, they took their life in their hands. Whenever someone tried to cross the lake in a boat to get to the other side, it was almost as if they had a death wish, for the avanc would lurk and swim and jump and bite anything that entered its pool. Eventually, the people near Llyn gathered together in a great hall and decided what to do with the avanc. They could not leave it there. Their place was so unsafe. One of them spoke of a man who lived alone in the hills not far away. A man called Hugh Gaddan, who was said to be the strongest man in Wales. They said, "Summon Hugh Gaddan. Get him here, and he will tell us what to do with the avanc." So a group of villagers went off and found Hugh Gaddan's farm. He had been in a war in France for many years, but was still a huge man. They knocked on his door and bade him come to the meeting, and that he did. He sat down the villagers and outlined his plan of ridding Llyn of the avanc. "Right, that girl over there, the one with the blonde hair. Betsan, your name is, isn't it?" Girl shook her head. "You are fair indeed, and I have heard you sing of a morning as you go out to milk the cows, with a voice as golden as honey, with a voice like the very angels themselves. You must do this. Sit at the side of Llyn and sing your favourite hymn. Keep singing until the avanc comes close. Summon all your courage, for close it will come, closer and closer. But your song will be so sweet that it will nestle its head in your lap. And then keep singing until it sleeps. I own 2 of the biggest oxen in Wales. I will grab hold of the avanc with great chains. We will tie it to the oxen and we will pull it to the sea. That is the plan. Everybody else will hide in the trees. Bring all your weapons, your swords, your spears, your shields. Bring them all, for the avanc will not come quietly. That I promise you." The next morning, at the time between times, all the people of Llyn gathered around the lake, hiding in the trees. Betsan walked to the lake itself, splashed her toes in the ice-cold water, and sat on a rock, looking out to sea. She went to sing, but nothing came from her throat. She coughed and then sang a song so beautiful it was like the birds themselves had come down from the trees. It was like the whole sky seemed to part in silence, and all that could be heard was her beautiful voice. All the villagers were gathered nearby, and every single one of them listened to what she had to sing. She sang of God and the heavens. She sang of love long lost. She sang of everything she could possibly remember, and just when she was on the verge of giving up, a green, scaly head appeared above the water. Eyes as old as the mountains watched her and zeroed in on her. Then, swirling and gliding across the top of the lake, there came the avanc. It approached her closer and closer. She felt her heart starting to beat faster and faster. For once, she felt it would burst out of her chest, but still she sang. Far away, hiding, Hugh Gaddan said that he had never seen such courage. And the avanc grew closer and closer until it slunk out of the water, its small crocodilic legs walking along the beach, until it placed its head on Betsan's lap. and closed one eye and then another until it slowly went to sleep. Immediately, Hugh Gaddan and all the people of the village rushed out and tied the chains around the Avanc. Great, huge chains, big enough to hold a bear. 5 such chains were lashed around it. As soon as it felt the cold chains upon its body, it started to writhe and turn and twist. But it was held fast. Hugh Gaddan tied the tied Avanc to the old cart that he once had, pulled by 2 of his giant oxen, and with a whip off they set, over the land, bumping over the ground, through an old path, through the forest they came. The Avanc was so heavy that the oxen strained and strained and strained, but still they pulled it and pulled it and pulled it, till something happened they did not expect. Such was the strain on the oxen that one of them's eye popped out and rolled onto the floor and exploded into a pool of water. It's now a lake called Llyn Llygad y Buwch, the cow's eye. Finally, they pulled the Avanc into Snowdon, pulled the Avanc to the foot of Eryri, the Rwyddfa, the tallest mountain in Wales, and pushed it into Llyn Barfog, the lake at the bottom. Hugh Gaddan admitted that they would never get it to the sea, but they had got it to Llyn Barfog at last. There the chains unwound and snapped, and there the Avanc slunk off into this lake in the middle of nowhere, far away from farms, far away from people and cattle. Far away it went, and then deep down, down into the water, where it vanished. There was much rejoicing amongst the people. Hugh Gaddan returned and hailed Betsan as the hero. The Avanc was never seen in Llyn Conwy again. But now, even now, if you go to Llyn Barfog at the foot of the Rwyddfa and are lucky enough at the time between times, a time it is neither night nor day, but the sun has gone and the sky is grey, you might see a ripple on the water. You might see a twirl in the pool. You might see the tail of a beaver, huge, or the crocodilic head of the Avanc as it lurks there still. Hugh Gaddan and Betsan were married and lived a happy life, and were never ever troubled again by this great beast from the wilds of Wales. And that, my friends, is the tale of the Avanc for you from me at the time between times. Diolch yn fawr, my friends. Thank you ever so much. Wow, that was some story. The tale of the Avanc, one of the great tales of the creatures of Wales. Thank you ever so much for joining me here, but I am not finished. Oh, although I think my legs are. They seem to be giving up underneath me. See Richard, the ghost behind us? He is peering here because he knows that it's still that time. The time when it is neither night nor day, but the sun is gone and the sky is grey. The tale I am about to tell you now is far darker than that of the Avanc. But first, let me just partake of this small glass of squash, for my voice will soon leave me. Oh, did you see how it suddenly went dark? Let us go, my friends, to Llangernwy, not far from here. There, nestled in a valley, is a small town with an even smaller church called St. Dagain's. There in the churchyard is an old tree. Some say it is 3,000 years old. Some say it's as old as the mountains. It is like a hooked claw, bending and twisting. It has seen many deaths, many marriages, many births, and still it stays there in St. Dagan's church. There is a legend in the church of St. Dagan's in Llangernwy that every Halloween, at the stroke of midnight, a lone candle will burn inside the church. There will be a swirl of wind, and the temperature will drop. And there will appear a creature called the Angel Star. It's hard to say. The Angel Star. No one knows what it looks for. No one knows what it sounds like. But it comes from the very dark of shadow itself. Some say it's a shadow's shadow. It will make its way to the front of the church, and directly at midnight, directly when the church bells ring, it will announce the names of all the villagers who will die the following year. One by one, it will read them out from a great book in front of it. One by one, it will call them all those who are about to die. So, as is quite obvious, none of the people would go near the church. But on this night, 200 years ago, this very night, a man sat in a pub in Llanganwy. A man called Sean Coch. He was a tailor and the most confident man anyone had ever known. He sat there with a drink in his hand with his friends all around him and said, "This Angler Star, there is no such thing." Oh, but there is, Sean. There is, Sean. Don't you go near the church this Halloween. Don't you go near the church this Calan Gaeaf. You must stay away from there, just like any sensible man would. But why should I? I will bet you 3 silver pieces that I will be able to sit in the church this Halloween at midnight. And the next morning, at the time between times, you will give me 3 silver coins in return. No, Hugh, no, I will not, Sean, right? I will not allow this, Hugh, to happen. I don't care what you allow or not. For this Halloween, I will prove that there is no such thing. The months passed until October came again, Tachwedd. So dark, so cold. The time between times is long. The nights are dark and as black as pitch. You can hardly see your hands in front of your face. The graves seemed ever more crooked. The gravestones were full of moss. And Sean Coch made his way through the creaking grate of St. Dagan's churchyard, walked up the flagstone path until he came to the great oak door, which he opened and it squeaked in front of him. The church was as cold as ice. But one single solitary candle glowed down at the front of the church. Sean stepped forward. Even he admitted he had a tremor as he walked to the front pew and sat facing the candle. All around him, the stained-glass windows looked down. All around him, the temperature dropped as the night grew older and older. Suddenly, what seemed like miles away, he could hear the sound of voices, hear the sound of laughter, and he knew that the pubs were closing. He clinked the 3 silver coins in his hand that he had as part of his bet and held them close. Suddenly, midnight came, the witching hour, the time when darkness seems to have a darkness of its own. Sitting on the pew, he felt so cold. He felt as if he had moved into a world beyond the world he was in. When suddenly, and without warning, The candle that he had in front of him suddenly blew out. Gone, leaving him in perpetual darkness. He looked around. It seemed like all the images in the stained glass windows were looking down and bearing in to his very soul, when suddenly, at his shoulder, he heard a voice that said, "Sit still." He turned around and looked into a face beyond the realms of hell, hooded and cowled, with a breath so fetid and dank that it seemed to age Sean even as he looked at it. And then a voice rang out from this figure, and it said only two words, as a skeletal hand positioned itself on the shoulder of Sean. And what it said was, "Sean Koch." The next morning, Sean's friends rushed into the church. There they found him, laying on the ground, his face pressed against the stone floor and as white as snow. The 3 silver coins were there on the stone slabs of the ground, and he was as dead can be. Another victim of the Anglo store. He is buried in the graveyard, under the tree that is years and years old. His gravestone says, "Sean Koch," whose voice was taken from us at the tolling of the midnight bell by the Anglo store. And even today, my friends, nobody will enter that church after the time between times, especially not on Calan Gaeaf, Halloween, for fear of their name being called by whatever it is that lurks the corridors, the cavernous caves, and the church. And that, my friends, felt a shiver myself then, is the horrible story of the Anglo store. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much, my friends. That is another tale of Creatures and Curios of Wales. Diolch yn fawr. Whew! Whew! I felt a chill down my spine then. I hope you enjoyed that. That's not one I tell normally. It just came to me in a moment, as if I wanted to tell it. And even though we're gathered at the time between times to relax, to enjoy, sometimes you can't beat a good old ghost story, can you? You can't beat a tale from the crypt like that. Wowzers. I haven't quite finished. I want to talk a little bit more. First of all, can I just ask you, if you're joining me here and it's the first time you've joined me, please take a look at the channel. Time Between Times Storytelling. I have almost 90 tales on here now, all different and all told in a mindful way for you to enjoy and to relax. Please consider subscribing. It makes a big difference to me if you hit that subscribe button. One, it makes me know, it makes me think, it makes me know that you're there. There is nothing so lonely sometimes as sitting here with Richard, talking to the screen. I also have a podcast called Time Between Times Podcast. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts. Oh, excuse me, my friends. You may find that there. Also, if I may be so bold, I've put a link at the top there for ko-fi.com/Owen Staton. That's just a little website that allows you to buy me a coffee, essentially. or essentially, give me the money for a coffee. I can't have enough coffee. I think coffee is a great thing. And if you're feeling really generous and have enjoyed the tales tonight, please consider buying me a coffee. It would really make my night. Whew. Right, where do we go? Where do we go? I can feel the night coming upon us. I can feel the time between times grow wafer thin, but still out there at the time between times, I can feel the Tylwyth Teg, the ghosts of those who have come before us. There are lights in the sky. I've seen 4 ghosts in my life, my friends, and every one of them has been at the time between times. But we are not going for another dark tale. In fact, we're not even going from a tale for Wales. This week, I told a great story that I'd come across that happened in a place called Lincoln, part of England far away. But Lincoln has a fantastic cathedral, its spire stretching to the sky. But many years ago, when that cathedral was young, something happened there that has repercussions even to this day. You see, in a cave not far from Lincoln, many years ago, a cave so dark that no one dare enter, for some say it was a gateway to hell itself, sat the Diawl, the devil and all his minions, his imps, his demons. He said, "Tonight is a dark night, my friends. Go forth, cause chaos. Write on all the church walls. Scare everyone who dares leave their house. Travel from town to town and cause all the chaos you want, for now is our night." With a wailing, a whelping, a screaming and a screeching, all the demons of hell poured forth into the English countryside. They ran from town to town, hammering on windows so that when people opened their curtains, just peering red eyes looked in. They hammered on doors, running away, so people thought the place was covered in ghosts. They said they even twisted the spire of a church, causing it to break. And finally, at last, they rushed all the way to Lincoln. And there was the cathedral itself. The demons and imps rushed to the churchyard and hammered on the oak door, and using all their might, they pushed open the cathedral doors and burst into the church itself and started to tip over the pews, started to smash the windows, started to pull out the candles. But on that night, that strange night, something happened they did not expect. For there on the altar was a Bible that was open. And on that Bible was a picture of the most beautiful angel anyone had ever seen, all dressed in white with great wings above her. Taking a deep breath, the angel pulled itself from the pages of the book by an arm, a second arm, then her wings glowing straight out as she pulled herself from the Bible and into the church. It was like a warmth filled the air. A happiness, a grace covered the whole building as she reached up and jumped out of the book itself. All the demons, the Diawl's minions, all fled in terror as the angel bade them leave this house of God. The doors of the church slammed close. A silence descended, and the angel looked very, very pleased for herself. She took a breath, and then bang! Ooh! She looked down. Someone had thrown a stone at her, and she looked up into the rafters of the church, and there, grinning down upon her with a chuckle, she saw a lone imp. "I will not leave! I will not leave!" cried the imp, throwing another stone at the angel, who ducked away. This angel knew a spell and spoke in a language that was as old as the mountains, and cast it at the imp that hid in the rafters of Lincoln Cathedral, turning it to stone. Its feet turned grey and hard. And the stone moved all the way up its body until at last its grinning visage turned to an old earthly grey stone. And now, almost 1,000 years later, the imp is still there, glaring down from the rafters of Lincoln Cathedral, a curio, a creature. It even has a glowing light looking up at it as it sits in the rafters, glaring down at those who walk underneath. The Lincoln imp is famous the world over. Search out his image and you will see him there. Go to Lincoln Cathedral if you get a chance and walk down the aisle looking upwards. And as the night becomes dark, the light shines up and there you will see it, grinning down at you from the rafters. But you, unlike many others, will know the tale of the Lincoln imp. You will know how it is there, why it is there. And wry smile will pass over your lips. The angel returned to the Bible and had not been seen again since. But every Christmas day, the Bible is placed open on the page with the angel's picture, knowing that the cathedral has a guardian, forever willing to leap forth and aid it if once again the minions of the diawl will cause chaos. That, my friends, is a great story, a small, happy tale called the Lincoln Imp. My friends, thank you for joining me. Whenever I turn on the news, whenever I look in a newspaper, whenever I spin around or hear people talking, all I hear are bad things. But one of the highlights of my week is when I sit and I record the Time Between Times video and I put it out there, knowing that this is an ancient tale that probably has not passed anyone's lips for many a year, but yet I have put it out for you to listen to. And these tales can still be passed on from generation to generation and move on from listener to listener. So you can tell your friends, who tell their sons, who tell their daughters, who tell their cousins, all these ancient old tales from Wales and beyond. When you tell a story, my friends, something happens. It's like your imagination just fires up awake and there is nothing better for you. Maybe tonight, when we have finished here sitting at the fire pit, don't turn your television on. How about you open a book or tell a story to someone you love and watch their eyes come wide awake with the wonder of stories. Stories are so important. Stories are everything. And when you tell them, for just a few moments, it magically transports you to somewhere you didn't know you could still go. The realm of stories. Diolch yn fawr, my friends. Thank you ever so much for joining me tonight. I'm sorry it took so long for me to get on here and so long for me to get started. I'll make sure that I have checked everything before I do this, and I hope to do this monthly from now on, so you can gather and we can all sit and talk. I know there's quite a few of you here tonight, which is brilliant. Has anyone got any questions they'd like to ask me? Anything they want to talk to me about? Please just chuck them in the chat. Well, let's see if there's anything you want to say. It's always awkward, isn't it? Waiting. Is there anyone going to speak? Who have we got? We've got Alison, we've got Helen, we've got Cut in the Caboose is with us tonight. Nice to see you. Carl is here, Table Salt is here. There are others as well. Nobody wants to say anything. I have done all the talking. There we are. Well, I'm bored of my own voice now. My friends, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. You can always drop me a line at owenstaton@aol.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Owen S. Griffiths. You can go to Ko-fi, buy me a coffee, ko-fi.com/Owen Staton. You, oh, Helen. Helen has asked me a question. Yes, I have a favourite story, Helen. I have a few favourite tales. My favourite tale is my go-to tale. I won't tell it more tonight. I know many of you have heard it many times. Cal, I know, has heard it recently, and that is the Robbers of Penn. It's the first video on all the Time Between Times videos here, and it's a story that's really true to my heart because when I used to work in the Swansea Valley, all the locations are known to me, and it's a story that has everything. It has betrayal, it has adventure, it has some real characters in it, it has some great monsters in it. And The Robbers of Penwyllt is a fantastic old 18th century Welsh folk tale with a little bit of work from me in it as well. So that is my favourite story. If you haven't heard it, I'm sure if you've heard me do anything, you will know that The Robbers of Penwyllt is one which I go to. Check it out. Alison, that was a lovely break. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Alison. That is such a wonderful thing for you to say. And I really appreciate you just being here because none of us had to come here and sit at the Time Between Times, but we've all chosen to do so. And that to me means the absolute world. Thank you for joining me. Thank all of you for joining me. Whew. Okay. Right. I'm going to go and have a break. I'm going to go and relax. If any of you are going through a tough time at the moment, check out the stress busting video, which I put on last week. It's had some really good feedback. So anyone who's interested in that, really try and check that out. Michael, thank you. No, thank you, Michael. Thank you for being here. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you for listening. Take care, my friends. Have a great night and take care of yourselves. And I will see you again soon at the Time Between Times. Time it is neither night nor day, but the sun is gone. The sky is grey. The time when the veil between our world and the fairy world, the world of the Tylwyth Teg, is upon us. Diolch yn fawr. Nos da.